Hello, my lovelies. Welcome. So today I was thinking a lot about why is it that we search so much for companionship? And I want to talk about the fact that we are tribal by nature. As a species, we started out as tribal human beings. Community is what kept us safe and what kept us alive. We are not weak for wanting community, wanting our people. We are wired that way. And being alone or being outcast, as it were, in the very beginning of human existence, it meant death, really. You know, you had to survive on your own and you had to face the elements on your own. Our nervous system still reads isolation the same way. Truly, we have not evolved so much that as a species now we are meant to be on our own, to be a solitary unit. So I want to talk a little bit about that. And one of the things that got me thinking about this was also, as an individual, I am very competitive. And I always have been, to some degree. Ooh, that's tasty. There was a time when I wouldn't have spoken out quite so easily, and I wouldn't have been as outright with it as I am now. But now I'm just who I am, right? I'm competitive, and you know, part of that is we want to be noticed. We want someone to notice us. We want to belong to a group without explaining ourselves. So here again, we're kind of heading back into that kind of, you want your tribe, you know, you want your people, you want your group, whatever you want to call it. I think that's what we all still kind of aim for in our lives. And wanting company doesn't mean that you're needy, and it doesn't mean that you're weak. It means that your wiring still works. Our basest selves, who we have been for millennia, it's still in there, and it still speaks to us in our everyday lives. So I really feel like a lot of us kind of get ourselves off track by trying to placate. And I do a lot of like smoothing of edges, and I'm kind of diplomatic in how I say things and how I present things. But by the same token, I know that part of that is because I do want to belong. You know, I don't want to be, I've always kind of been like an outcast a little bit. I've had a few amazing friends through the course of my lifetime, and I have always said, you know, to have a few really good friends is better than having a whole lot of people that you call acquaintances. Now, I still believe this, but that doesn't mean that I don't want to have somewhere to belong. And I think we all kind of shoot for that, meaning that, you know, even if you're someone who has chosen to be alone and you've decided that it's easier and you don't want to play games anymore, there's always that thing in the back of your mind that's like, I feel like I would really be happy if I had like a crew, my group, right? My people. And I said that, you know, that was my reason for wanting to start this, is community. Being competitive and proving your usefulness through doing things better than someone else, it offered a certain degree of protection, and it offered stability. and it gave you your place within the group. And we all still, somewhere in our lives, we look for our group. I really like my position at my job. It's a selective position. There are 2 of us, in the whole of our company that runs 9 facilities. So, I really enjoy that. There's a little bit of autonomy that comes with that position. But by the same token, you still want some people to see and acknowledge you for where you are valuable. And I don't feel like that's lacking. That's not what I'm getting. And in nursing, it can become kind of a toxic habit because in some ways we've gotten away from the being acknowledged for doing, and we've kind of leaned toward validating ourselves by making others look inferior or less or small. And I have always played devil's advocate when I hear these kind of conversations going on, because there's a lot that goes into any kind of a role or a job, but especially in nursing, where you are responsible for people's lives every day. To have someone make you look like less, maybe you made a mistake or you didn't do something the way someone else would have, I find that people always will freely discuss that, and I think it's deplorable. I really do. I don't like when one person is raising themselves up by standing on the back of somebody else. And our world has kind of become this to some degree because we have lost that natural inclination toward being tribes. Now they're cliques, and it's about popularity, and it's about, the way we dress or the way we act or the way we look, and we've lost the usefulness of competition. So there's kind of a tension between these 2 ideas. So it's getting so far from being recognized, I think. I think that we don't recognize that, we once started out as a people that you had to belong to something, some group, some, culture. And I think we've turned it into, now it's like the popularity game, right? We all have 3 degrees of separation from the people that we interact with. I don't hang out with people outside of the job. I am home and I'm alone and I'm with my dogs and I'm in my head, you can tell. It creates kind of a dilemma in my mind that, how can we get back to not seeing people as needy because they want community, not seeing people as the enemy if they are partaking in a little bit of competitive edge. We're still wired the same. Our brains still want us to belong to a group, and our nervous system still wants us to feel safe and protected. And some of these ways that we act, even the people who will push somebody down to build themselves up, what they're trying to do is feel safe, right? But we have to find a way to make that less harmful to others. It's not my desire to have someone else left on the sideline or left out in the cold because I want to belong somewhere. That's never the way that we were wired initially. And we are so busy trying to one up everyone else that we forget that they have the same feelings that we do. that they want the same things that we do on a basis level. You know, money aside and lifestyle aside and professional success aside, as human beings, we all desire deep within ourselves to belong to that thing that it is that we are engaging in life. We all want connection. There's nothing better than feeling safe with an individual, and I mean feeling safe on every level, where you can be accepted for who you are without explanation. You can tell your stories and not be judged. And maybe where you can be competitive and still show some vulnerability. There aren't very many strong units of people existing anymore. And we are so populated, this seems bizarre to me. A lot of people are really lonely. Families are more disconnected than they've ever been. And it's sad. It's very sad. You know, there's so much of ourselves that we hide from the world. We are wired that way. We are wired to want community. We are wired to want to belong to something. Even the most solitary of us still want that feeling of security and protection and safety. And unfortunately, that feeling that we long for is the reason why many of us are alone, because we've learned through trauma that we don't feel like people are safe. We have nobody to go to when we're weary, when we feel like we don't have one more thing to give. We're becoming so distanced from community that it makes it almost impossible to feel comfortable and safe. Like, your brain doesn't know the difference between being alone in the wilderness and being alone in your home. In a community, you know, everybody had their place. There was a pecking order, there was a hierarchy, but there also was protection for all. There was comfort in community. One of the main things that sets off our nervous system these days, that gives us some of these things, anxiety is part of the fight or flight syndrome, right? I think we would have far less of it if we felt accepted. You know, one of the ways that tribes succeeded and survived was they didn't travel alone, they didn't hunt alone, they didn't tend to their children alone. There was always someone there. And to be alone, like I said earlier, potentially could have meant death when it was survival as a group, or, you know, hope you can make it on your own out there. Now, of course, you know, we're not fighting wildlife every day, and we're not trying to find shelter every day, and we're not doing all of those things, but we are trying to make mortgage payments and go to jobs that sometimes aren't fulfilling, or sometimes take everything out of us that we have available to give. And then we come home to our families and we wonder why there's, you know, such a split in the family unit. But when you have nothing else to give because you've given it all to this job that is what is going to provide for your family, it causes a fracture there. But for now, I want to thank you all so much. Magic. Anyway, thank you for coming along. Like and subscribe. if you want to join my little community here. This is something that, if you think deeply about why it is that we want connection, I think it hits the nail on the head. It is simple tribal behavior. Thank you. Love you guys. I will see you tomorrow.